Happy Sunday. Today, I want to talk about SEO. And SEO, I mean search engine optimization. And the best way to start this is RIP SEO. That's right, rest in peace. SEO is going away. And it's unfortunate because real estate agents, loan officers, we mastered SEO. We mastered how to, fit into the Google search algorithm so that we came to the top of the page and were the first thing people saw. And so congratulations on that. Although SEO is dying, nearly extinct, what's next, you might ask? It's AEO and GEO, which is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what AEO is, what GEO is, and then how do you optimize your content to fit both. And then I want to give you a little hack on how to help you get better at these things. So here's the deal. As we talked about, SEO was really, it was search engine optimization that was built for word driven by Google's ranking algorithm. You optimize your website so that when somebody typed in, let's say, FHA loans in Arizona, you came up, or top realtor in Austin, you came up. And the rankings really just required, what you had to master is keyword placement, backlist, site speed and mobile optimization, relevant content, of course, and meta descriptions and tags. And so that worked great. But here's what's happening with the advent, especially with Perplexity about a year and a half ago. Perplexity is eating up more and more of search functions. ChatGPT just rolled out its own, they're now having their own internal search engine. And in fact, when you go to Google, most likely you're going to look at Gemini's results first. All those AI searches do not use the algorithm from SEO. It takes nothing into account like SEO. And so if we still want to be present for when people search now through AI tools, we have to learn about these new things like AEO and GEO. So let's talk about AEO. And AEO stands for Answer Engine Optimization. And here's what that means. And so here's what used to happen. Like we would type in search, like I want to take my wife to an Italian place and I want to take her to someplace she's going to like. And so I'd maybe go to Google or Yelp and I go, hey, what's the best Italian restaurant in the city I'm in? And I'd get, if it was Google, I'd get like 4 or 5 or 10 ads, and then I would get 20 pages of restaurants. And it was for me to figure out which one fit me best and why. And, Google's didn't match, who I am with what I was looking for. It did, more paid ads and used its own algorithm. Well, today, if I had that same question, I would ask Perplexity, or I'd ask ChatGPT, or Gemini, or Claude, and I'd go, and I'd be much more specific. I'd go, hey, Perplexity, I want to take my wife out for date night. She likes Northern Italian. We'd like to have a bright, sunny restaurant. We kind of like it leaning towards, meats versus pasta. We're probably going to get a bottle of wine. So we want a reasonably priced, good Chianti. So we want a restaurant known for a good wine list. We don't want to have a wait. We want to make sure that there's parking. Who would you recommend? Now, what Perplexity is going to do is it's going to give me one recommendation. And then it's going to tell me why it's the perfect fit for based on what I asked for and based about what it knows about me, right? And so here's the perfect fit. And then it'll go, if for some reason this doesn't strike you as the right one, let me know and I'll give you another selection or another 2 selections. But it's not giving me 400 to choose from. I don't have to do a ton of research. I was very specific in my search. It gave me very specific answers. So that's an example of answer engine optimization. And as it searched for the answer for me, what it did is it looked up like reviews. It looked up tons of reviews. It looked up all social media validation. It looked at a ton of stuff, right, to get me what I wanted. And it would say, Reddit readers like it because of this. Yelp readers like it because of this. It's ranked 4.5 on TripAdvisor, whatever. It gave me the data on how it picked it for me and why. And then the words that I gave it that said was most important, it would search in social media, online, that fit what I wanted. And by the way, I've used it hundreds of times. It gives me great recommendations. And so that's AEO. But what we're starting to now evolve to is GEO. And GEO is much more complicated, and GEO is going to be much harder to actually position ourselves for the answer in GEO. And so GEO stands for Generative Engine Optimization. And what that means is that the AI tool no longer has to go out and search for the answer. It has knowledge of the answer already embedded in it. It already is familiar with the restaurant that I want. It doesn't have to go search. And so now it's telling me, based on its general knowledge, what the best restaurant is. And so that's a little bit different than going out and searching. And so as we start to think, well, gosh, in this new world, how do I become present? How do I show up? And it's interesting because I was listening to a podcast earlier this week, and I'm sorry I can't pronounce the person's name. It was on a Glasp podcast, and they had Metehan, Metehan. I'm thinking Metehan, and it's Yesilyurt, and he's been an expert in the SEO space. And now he's an expert shifting into this AEO and GEO space. And so they had this podcast, and I'll put a link to the podcast below. He had this podcast he talked about in the new world of AEO and GEO. What you really need to try to achieve is called share on AI content. Share on AI content. And how you construct that content is different than how you do it for SEO. And so here's some things I'm going to give you. Here's the thing. I'm going to give you some tips for how to get share on content. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about it. And this applies for both AEO and GEO. I'm just going to give you a couple of tips. You can look this up yourself, and I'm going to give you a way to really master this. But here's the first thing. You need to use clear name entities. And what that means is, one, you want to use your full name, your company, your location, and you need to say your role, and it needs to be super clear, simple, and consistent. What really confuses AI is if you show up in one spot, let's say me, I show up in one spot as Ron, another spot as Ronald, another spot as Stowers. If I show up differently all over the place, AI starts to mistrust you, and it will not recommend you. So the more consistent you are, the more branded you are with full name, company, location, and your role, then AI will start to trust you. So that's the first thing. The second suggestion is you got to build strong internal connections. And when I say internal connections, that is connections to something that somebody wants. So I might say, hey, I'm Ron Stowers. I work at ABC Mortgage in San Diego, California, and I'm a top loan officer. My connection would be that specializes in FHA loans, that specializes in VA loans, that specializes in luxury property, that specializes in first-time home buyers, that works with Mary Sue the realtor. That internal connections starts to give it more to draw on to rate your professionalism and to rate your impact in the marketplace. What it starts to do is starts to see you as called as a domain expert, but you can only be a domain expert if you add that internal connection. And that gets us to the third thing, which is prioritize relevance, clarity, and focus. So what this means is that you have to have a strong description of what you're offering and why it's important and relevant, right? And the example, and by the way, I posted an article in LinkedIn this morning on this topic where I went into a much greater detail, but here's the example I used for prioritization. And here's the wrong way to say it. Mortgage dynamics are multifaceted and require holistic financial navigation. That is not really, it's not clear, right? But instead, if I said you can buy down your mortgage rate by paying points at closing, right? Now I'm relevant. It's important. I've given you advice. So I'm Ron Stowers. I'm a loan officer in San Diego. I specialize in luxury financing, and I can help you manage your interest rate by buying down your mortgage rate by paying points at closing. That's much different than saying I have a multifaceted, holistic financial navigation, which means nothing. So be really specific. 4, we already talked about it. You have to be super consistent across platforms. It has to match. It's super important to match everywhere. Your website, LinkedIn, Zillow, if your profile, YouTube, TikTok, it has to really, really align. And here's the thing. So this is the best thing. So let's say you're confused about AEO and GEO. Here's what I want you to do. Here's my recommendation. Go to whatever AI tool you use, whatever it is, and type in who's the best loan officer, or who's the best realtor, or what realtor or what loan officer do you recommend in your city. So let's say I would go, and by the way, I've done this. I actually did a video on this, which you can look up. But you go, who's the best loan officer in San Diego? Or can you recommend a loan officer in San Diego? And it will give you 3, 4, 5. It will give you a handful of results. And then you go, here's the thing. The next thing you ask is, how did you determine the answers? Let's say it's ChatGPT. ChatGPT, how do you pick these people? How do you select them? And it's amazing. I did this with both ChatGPT and I did with Perplexity. Perplexity is a much better search engine, but search model. But I said, Perplexity, how did you pick these people? And it said, I picked them because of, it just gave me the whole list. It gave me like the 10 criteria and rated it, which one's most important. It told me how it picked it. And it's interesting because when I did this for San Diego, it seemed to be loan officers all from top companies. I said, Perplexity, you seem like you have a prejudice towards, high production or big companies. And it answered saying, no, I don't. It's just, high producing loan officers and high producing companies typically show up more in the spaces that I'm researching. Kind of interesting. But it gives you the formula. And then the third question you ask it. So 1, please recommend a loan officer in the city. 2nd, how did you select this person? And then 3rd, what would I have to do for you to select me, right? And it will give you a roadmap telling you exactly what you have to do to be the top of an AEO or GEO list. All you have to do is ask your AI tool and it will tell you. It's no more complicated than that. And so when it might be overwhelming how quickly things are changing, but the thing is, rest assured the solutions are at hand. Just ask your AI tool and then follow the recipe. And if you do this, you'll be setting yourself up for a really strong future. SEO is going away. It got us here. It's going away. But AEO and GEO will take you further. The solutions are at hand. Just ask your AI tool, and that's it. So I hope you're having a great weekend. I hope you found this valuable. I will put a link to the podcast in my notes below. I may also put a link, if I can figure it out, to my to the article I wrote and posted on LinkedIn below. Check me out on LinkedIn. I try to put valuable stuff. Sometimes it's interesting stuff. I think this is a really good article. I think everybody needs to know this. I wrote it in really simplistic terms so that anybody could follow this recipe. Anybody can understand it and follow it. And then the hack that I offer is just fantastic. So with that, I thank you for giving me a little bit of your time. I hope you're having a great day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.